Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm actually was in a bit of a bind debating if I should do this video during this time, because in the last month or so, there's been so much going on with all the investment that I had, that it did give me pause and a question multiple time if I should continue doing real estate investing, and that's the reason why I'm doing this video titled "Now I Know Why Most People Quitting Real Estate Investing in the Middle." So everyone tell when about real estate investing, when you talk to everybody that's successful, you're talking about they give you financial freedom, they give you cash flow, they give you passive income in real estate. And if you look through YouTube, you see videos everywhere that everything is like bright and sunshine. Nobody talk about like anything that's bad happening in real estate. They always said even most of my video, if you look back to some of my video, all things are good, and it was good. It was good for a time, but today I want to dive into a couple of things that did give me pause and did give me a reason to ask myself, is this too much to deal with? Should I just miss everything, sell everything, and walk away and be happy with all the equity that I built over the years? And why real estate investing isn't actually passive, right? So property quiet. So the first thing I want to revisit is I did when I first go out and invest by myself back in 2022. I bought a 3 unit, and that turned out to be really good because it was stable for the last 4 years or so. Those 3 units been rented out, rent been coming in like on a regular basis. I didn't have any turnover. I think three of that tenant are still there. Three of the original tenant that when I when I first purchased that property, 2 tenants were there already, and then 1 tenant I placed in like a month after, and since then all 3 tenants still there. So that's not too bad, right? And then there's another property that I bought a month later. Same thing happened. You know, uh, we had like 3 tenants there when I bought it, and then after that they stayed, and then I think just recently, just last year, one of the tenants had to have an emergency and have to move out of state. So I flipped the property, fixed it, everything up, cost like around 3 to 4 thousand just to fix everything because they've been there for so long, and then rent it out at a higher price. So the cash flow is much better. That's the second thing. And then 2 years ago, at the end of 2022, I believe, the end of 2023, sorry, the end of 2023, I purchased a fourth unit, and that's the one that I start having issue. So there was a lot of issue with that unit itself. There's leak involved, 2 eviction from that property that stressed me out for a little bit, but I got through it, and then I was able to rent it out. So the 4 units, but over time, there's a lot of issue. I think in the last couple of months alone, I placed like 2 months ago, I the AC failed, and I checked with the AC guy to replace, just be able to see if I can replace it, and they said to me that it's gonna cost like 4 or 5 thousand to replace 1 unit only, and so I ended up like have to scramble to find somebody to install mini split, and I was able to install like 2 mini split per unit. The cost for the mini split itself is like 1250. So four mini split total for 2 units. That's around $5,000, which is expected, but it's not too bad, right? And then that 4 unit itself did have a couple other issue like leaking and and eviction. I had 2 eviction for that one. One tenant was the previous owner tenant. I inherited that tenant, and then they start falling behind on rent, and have to work with them for a while, and then end up have to kick them out. The other one I placed through a program. So a lot of people think that if you work with the government, then the tenant will be good. Starting out, it was good. That tenant, when I first talked to her, she had this voucher from the city that gave her, the deposit and also 3 months rent up front. So I got that money up front, or when I signed the contract, I got that money up front from the city, and then after the 3 months end, the city actually gave her an extra 3 more months of rent, so that's 6 months. So that's not bad. So my thinking is, if she get all these free rent, every month that she doesn't have to pay rent, she can save some money for rainy day. But it turned out they don't know how to save money, and after the 6 month end, she started falling behind on rent, and then eventually I have to evict her. So that's the second eviction that I had, right? And then last year we just purchased a 14 unit, and you can see it in one of my video. And it started out like my estimate for that 14 unit was there's gonna be like a cash flow of like 3 to 4 thousand a month, and with distribution we can save like 1,000 because we're distributing to our investor from the profit, so that's not too bad. But then the calculation, the numbers one thing, and then the reality is a different thing. Because if you look at one of my other video, I explained what's going on with it. So first of all, we had issue with the city. So for some reason, once I purchased the property, the city came and do an inspection, and then they said, oh, there's a couple of code violation, like we have to trim the palm tree because so there's some dead branches, and then some tenant, they throw trash in the they throw large furniture outside the bin, and we have to take care of that too. And then they place like unoperated vehicle in the lot for so long, it doesn't looks good, and it's kind of like a hazard. So we have to work with somebody, work with a vendor to remove those. And then after the city came, we have issue with the insurance company. And the insurance company came and said, oh, that's trip hazard and we have to do something about it. So it costs us like 5,000 to build a fence to be able to protect that area. And then after that, there's some major issue with the plumbing. One unit keep constantly leaking, and I have to work with a company to do a quote. First, they quoted me like for 9,000 for repairing the mold and taking out all the mold and make it clean, like remove them, like to remedy the mold, right? But then that estimate doesn't include like putting back everything together and put up the drywall and clean it up. So at the end, they gave me a quote for 7,500 for just removing the mold, and I'm like, oh man, that's gonna be crazy because that's too much. So what happened is I went and get a second opinion, and I found this other guy. And to be honest, like even though there's so much issue, I am so glad that I was able to find this plumber. So he was able to quote me for 6,500 to do the remove the mold and repair everything. So through all this bad thing that happened, one major bright spot is I found this plumber because I've been using him, within the last 2 months, I've been using him for doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So repair for one of the units is like, that's like unexpected repairs, cost me like around 8,000 because I have to give I have to deduct the rent for the month because the tenant have to move out 2 weeks from the place so that they can do that. And then the other issue that we can run into is if the tenant move out, you might have to find housing for them. And up until this point, I was able to, that's a lot of stuff that I learned during this whole process. Up until this point, I was able to negotiate with the tenant so that they can move to a family house, and then I would deduct their rent, or if they have to, and then the people that doing the like the repairing the mold, they can kind of like block up, contaminate the area, and then you do like a discount or a rent rebate or whatever to them. So that 14 unit also have major issue with with the heat that going on lately. They also have issue with with their AC, and I think we replaced like we installed 4 new mini split already with that 14 unit, so that's another 5 grand plus right there. So there's a lot of things that's going on. We see leaking, and and then after that, like even the water company come after us. I don't know why. So the other day, the water company sent me a letter. I thought it was just a routine check. They said, "Oh, you need to do a what is it called, a backflow test, and fill out, have somebody do a backflow test for the property, have them fill out the paperwork and send it back." So I called somebody from Yelp doing the backflow check with them, and they said it's only costs $75 to do a backflow test. So I'm like, okay, that's not too bad. It's only $75. Just pay them for that and do it. Because I'm assuming that if they do it every year, then last year they must have passed somehow. So this year shouldn't be too bad. Well, uh, it's actually worse than I thought. So it came out the test failed, and then the company that did the test quote me like around 2,000 just to repair. But then later on they retracted the estimate because they said, oh, the estimate is too it's not right because there's more repairs to be done. So then I have to scramble. But like I said, a good thing I found that plumber, and that plumber is doing repairs for me. So he quoted me only like 1,200 to do the repair, but then plus material, the whole thing is around 2,500, and now it's fixed. Um, and but during the whole process, like when he shut down the water for the day, so that day he's scheduled to do um, the replace for the backflow preventer, right? So he estimated that he's gonna start the day early, like around 10, because he lived like an hour away. So he started at 10, but then in the middle of it, like on the way there, his car broke down. So I was constantly communicating with him. His car broke down, so he couldn't get to the apartment until like I think 2 p.m. And then because when it's 2 p.m., you have to shut down after water. But the problem with our property is that they don't have like our separate shut off. So it's so old that I don't know how, like years ago they don't install this. So what they had to do is they have to call the water company to physically come and shut it off with their special keys or something. And then the water company, like I heard from one of my tenants, he told me that the water company closed at 4. So between 2 and 4, we have to finish the job. Uh, it turned out that they do have somebody on call for 24/7. So when I confirmed with the plumber guy, he said that's the case. So they were able to work until like 4, and then not until 7 o'clock that they were able to repair it. And they thought, okay, everything's good. Let's call back the water company to turn back on. And remember, this is like 7 p.m. at night, so the sun is already set. This already was it sun sunset? Yeah. So the sun's already setting. So I'm like, dude, they need to finish this stuff like we're now, or else it's gonna get dark soon. But when they turn back the water at 7, I was about to text all the tenants and say, okay, good thing everybody, and the water's back on. But I was about to do that, and then my handyman told me that don't do it yet because something's break at 7 p.m. I'm like, oh crap. So I called the plumber up. The plumber like said, yeah, that's a pipe, something that's like a bit too short, and then it's leaking, so that they have to shut down the water, repair it, and then put it back on. So it didn't, it wasn't until 9 p.m. I was like scrambling on my phone trying to text back and forth because I live 2 hours away. So I was scrambling back and forth, and then just like hoping that the plumber guy and it was able to fix it, and he ended up like fix it at like 9 o'clock p.m. They were able to fix it, and everything's good at 9. And that's like just like a week ago. And just imagine my stress level. If you're like, to be honest with you, if it was me a couple of years ago, this kind of thing would have, by that time, like with all the AC repairs and stuff like that, I would be like, maybe this is not worth it. And even now, I'm asking myself, maybe this is not worth it, right? So there's so many hidden costs, and not just that, but then you have your paper and cash flow, one thing, but then all the extra repairs that compounding over the couple months, uh, it's gonna stress you out. It's gonna mess up with your mind. So even after the water, I thought, okay, that's gonna be the last of it. Hopefully, I can see light at the end of the tunnel. But then after the water issue, then we have another leak at one of the other apartments, and it's upstairs. And then I have to send the plumber back to repair the mold for a separate unit, and that costs like another I think 2,000 something, $3,000. And then that leak drip it down to the bottom unit, and then it's compounding and compounding. And then not only that, but now because so I'm still dealing with issue with the 14 units that we just bought last year, and then coming back like now, 2 weeks like 2 weeks ago, one of my threeplex in San Marino, like the tenant called me like I think it was like during the judo, my kids are doing judo, so it's between like 5 p.m. to 6. She texted me and said, oh, the breaker is like it's making this hissy sound. And then it's it's getting too hot because during that day it's really hot, so she's afraid that it's gonna go, the whole place is gonna catch on fire and burned down. And I was here with my kids. I'm like scrambling, like imagine the stress level during that time. I'm like, oh, yo, let me call somebody to come over and take a look. So luckily, the plumber guy, he have a friend that's doing electricals too. So he actually came back from Barstow, driving back from Barstow, and was able to replace a couple of wire and the breaker in there and fix it. But then after that, just found out that the AC, the reason that the breaker keep on tripping is because the tenant, she have a wall heater AC unit, and then in her room she have another portable AC unit, and then in the living room she have another board or another portable AC unit, and it all hooked up. And because of that, it's keep on tripping because they use too much power. And I was on this side, on this end, talking to the plumber AC guy, and he told me that's the reason why it's keep on tripping. And then on the other end, I'm talking to the lady, and she's like, oh, well, she's not using anything more than usual. But then we figured out it is like and then it is too much power. And then I asked, and then I found out from my handyman that the wall unit is not working anymore. So even though she have it plug in and turn on, it used the electricity, but then it's not blowing out cold air. So then I have to scramble to find the mini split guy to come in and install the mini split, and tell her to don't use the wall unit anymore, use the mini split instead. And then during that time, lucky that he had, like, during the time that I scheduled with him, another unit came up to me, the handyman told me that, oh, by the way, since you're just gonna give Sandra another mini split, you might want to look into giving another mini split to Miss Frankie too, because her wall unit is not working anymore. I'm like, oh, okay, let me just call him. Like, but then a lot of time, like, you have to check in with your tenant, because sometimes, like, they don't tell you things. And then when you find out the issue, it might be it costs too much more damage. It costs a lot of more damage. So make sure you check in with them a lot of times. So then, this is my personal property, by the way. So got an AC that needs to be fixed at Sandra house, because the wire keep on tripping, and then go over to Miss Frankie house, another AC. So yesterday was Wednesday, which is when we scheduled the AC. And then after that, the guy, he installed two AC. And then last night, oh my god, last night, my handyman go into another unit, because my tenant complaining that, oh, the AC is leaking, the wall AC is leaking water, and then it's damaged the wall, and then it's dripping into his unit. So I sent my handyman over to take a look, and then he looked at it. He said, oh yeah, the wall AC is broken, and it's keep on dripping water, leaking out water, and because of that, he can't fix the wall heater anymore, the wall AC anymore. And this is the third unit of mine. I'm like, oh man, if we found this earlier, I could have gotten Jay to install all three AC at the same time. But now, it's different. So I'm scrambling to text, like, the AC guy, the tenant, and then tell him, please come over and take a look and see if you can install the mini split as soon as possible. Lucky for me, I got a good text. I got a good news text this morning. The AC guy said somebody canceled the appointment for this morning, so he was able to replace, use that spot for for Miguel, which is the third tenant, and install AC. But then that's gonna cost me another $1,000. So personally, it's already $3,000 unexpected repairs within the month. So forget about all the cash flow that I have, like, But then the thing is, like, things are keeping going, and then I was able to get that done. But then this morning, one of the 4 unit, there's a leak that's been going on, like, in the last 2 days, and we were able to identify the leak. The leak was, like, under the slab, so the plumber guy was able to found it, but then it's under the slab, so he thought that he have some time to be able to just like kind of like remove the water, and then come back this morning to fix it. But then this morning I got another bad text from the tenant at the location, said, okay, water's starting to pour out and it's going outside of the wall. So we have to scramble to see. And then I talked to the plumber, and the plumber said, okay, you might want to find somebody to be able to shut down the water, because we don't want he's like 2 hours away, and then he can't get there until like another 2 hours. So we scramble. I text all the tenant at the location. Most of them are at work. Luckily, during the time, one of the tenant, like, boyfriend, he's still home, and he was able to shut off the water for us. I was getting ready, like I put on my shoe, I put on my clothes and everything. I was ready to drive up there. It's an hour drive. I was ready to drive up there just to shut the water myself if we couldn't find anybody. So that's the mental load that it's on me. And I'm taking on this role because I'm doing property management for the property and for my own property too. But then I can see why like other people that are not used to property management, you know, if they get constant hit with these kind of like repair requests, they would have just like throw their hands up and said sell it, right? Because I had a couple of friends that did that. I got I think three people so far, three friends that got their single house. They bought it, and then when they moved to a different house, the family grows, so they have bigger needs, so they moved to a different house and they rent out their old one. But then they don't know how to manage it well, and then they got like squatter. They got people that they have to evict, and then they don't have to go through the eviction process, so it dragged longer than they expected. And then after that one incident, they gave up. I mean, in the last like 3 years, I think like the incident that caused people to give up on real estate investing, like my three friends, I think I've experienced like ten of that in the last 3 years. And so the question is still on my mind, like should I sell everything? I mean, I technically literally I actually asked myself this question last night too, when they sent me the text that, oh, the AC need to be replaced again. Like, man, that's like the third AC like really split already, so that's like $3,000 just like that. I mean it is what it is. I just have to fix it. But on top of this, like, to be honest with you, like, the thing that I'm worrying about is not these, because this is like we can fix. Uh, it's just that it's very inconvenient for everybody, and we just have to coordinate with our vendors, our repairs person, to be able to do it. But the thing that's on my mind constantly right now is because right now it's August, and in November the property tax is due, and the insurance is due. The insurance itself for the 14 unit, last year we paid 13,500, so I have to build the reserve for that. And on top of that, the property tax is gonna be like 10,000. So we're talking about like $25,000 of reserve. Right now, the bank statement have around 15,000. So I still have time. I still have like 3 more months. So I have September, October, and November rent to be able to build up. I thought I'll be able to build up already, but then now to look at it, I might have to move some, maybe lend some money to the 14 unit of investment from my personal account, just to get through the November, like all the thing. So I mean, like I said, constantly, like in the last 2 months, I think I asked myself, like, should I sell like multiple time already? But I keep on going back and looking at the apartment that I invested with other people back like 10 plus years ago, right? So there's a huge temptation of, like, of exit. But I have to look at and see, is it a bad portfolio or it's just a bad operational cycle. And to me, it's not a bad portfolio, because when I bought it, all of them, like, on you know if everything runs smoothly, and if all the CapEx for now, like, I think, because the first three units, like the first like 3 years, it did pretty well. It's not that bad. It helped me build. I think I just have to make sure that I can build up the reserve better, to have the money for the bad, like, operating cycle when things break down. So I wasn't estimating all of them to break down at the same time like this, but because it does, it gave me a learning experience. And that's the thing that I'm gonna take with me after this time. I think after the summer and the weather is getting less severe, less heated, less hot, I think I will have some time to recoup, and build the reserve again. Because most of the issue right now is like this, it's like AC, and that's the thing that get to me the most right now. It stressed me out a bit. But yeah, but I mean, emotional exhaustion is a temporary thing. So it's not a permanent. It's not like a structural financial failure because if if all those are repairs, and we have a plan. We have a clear plan of what to do, and that's the thing that allow me to sleep at night, to be honest. So the question, I will ask myself again, if bad thing happen, I will ask myself, should I sell everything? But then, like I said, because I had experience with investment property that we invested back in '09 and 11, and I see how those perform. I know that in the long term, after all this issue has been resolved, the cash flow will pick me back up. And I'm the reason I'm doing this is because I know that in the long run, this is my retirement plan. I don't have I mean, I do have a W-2 job and a 401k and everything like that, but I'm more excited about the property, the income from the property, or the income from my investment for my retirement plan compared to the what I can get from like a 401k or something like that. So will move forward for now, but I'm probably gonna revisit it if things get worse, and I'll keep everyone updated. I'm gonna try to update like my portfolio once a month, so that I can at least document this journey, because for a lot of successful investors, like they have like at least 10 years behind them. I did two separate period. The investment that I had in 2009 and 2011, that passed over the 10 years already. I Even though I don't own those anymore, but I see it through. I see the end. I see how valuable, how beneficial it is at the end of the 10 years. So now this one, the portfolio that I just had, I created in 2022, and now it's only 2026. So it's still a lot. I still have to give it enough time to be able to generate the income that I needed. So for the takeaway or the strategy adjustment, I just have to reevaluate my capital reserve, make sure that after 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 all this is done, I have to make sure that I can build up the reserve quicker. So I did talk to my investors, and I did suspended the distribution for a couple months until we have enough money to go through the cycle of November for the property tax and the insurance. And after that, we can slowly distribute again, but not at the same level as we did before, because I was building up to distribute like 2,000 or 3,000. For the cash flow estimate, we can actually distribute 3,000 a month. But then I think I'm just gonna start slower, just do 1,000, and then a couple of months later, if everything if we see the reserve grow, then we can increase to 2,000, and then build the reserve again, and then increase to 3,000, and make sure we have like 6 month reserve. That way next year we don't have like because in April we're gonna have to do the property tax again. So we'll have to make sure I have those, and also reserve for repairs, like major repairs too. So that's what we're gonna do going forward. And just some overstress. I mean, right now I manage most of the thing myself, even though I have a handyman that doing like minor maintenance, both in Barcelona and San Marino. But right now I rely heavily on my on the prop on the plumber guys, and that, to be honest, like looking back, if I had that plumber when I purchased a 14 unit, I wouldn't like a lot of issue that I have right now could have been prevented. And if you look at one of my other video, what I learned from the purchase of it, why I don't use the regular inspector, like home inspector anymore, you see why. And I found the guy that's gonna be part of my plan for the next acquisition. And with him, I know that I will be able to eliminate so much cost or so much headache in the future if he's part of the purchase uh, of the next unit. So that's a good thing. So that's a couple of little good thing that came out, and I'm probably gonna do a video just for that, just see it, just to talk about how many good thing that came out of this. And then just remind myself why I got in, and of course, wealth accumulation is built through surviving these exact operational cycle, not avoiding them. So whatever I go through, I learn, and then hopefully I'll be able to avoid it next time, right? So all in all, real estate build wealth, but it's demand a tone of patient capital and resilient. Quitting isn't crazy. It's just a very logical temptation when everything breaks down, right? But the thing is, like, if you can get, pick yourself back up right after you fall down, and no matter how many times, like, I think I fall down, like, maybe like 10 times in the last 2 months, like it's constantly telling me, oh, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem, but each time I'm like, oh, should I still continue? And then the next day I'm like, oh, let's just move on. I find a solution. I send the guy over. He's gonna fix it. I just have to make sure that I got money to pay him. And the thing is, like, make sure that you pay the vendor like immediately. Once you're done with the work, you don't drag on with paying them unless the work is not finished. Because the thing is, like, when you pay them like that, if you find good people that do work for you and you pay them well, then they know it, and then they will put your issue as a priority. Because if imagine, like, if Sergio is my plumber, if I keep on, like, hagging and delay his payment, he's not gonna, like, the next time I call him for something, he's gonna drag his feet too. So make sure that you pay them well, because that's the thing. Once you find something that's good that can help you, keep them. Okay. And anyway, the call to action. Have you hit that point in your investing journey where you want to sell it all? How did it go? Did you pull through, or did you end up selling everything? Uh, put it in the comment section and we can discuss. And anyway, thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you next week.